At the outset of a meeting with Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte at the White House, US President Donald Trump praised Italy's increasingly hardline approach to immigration. Trump said that the Italian Prime Minister had taken a tough stance on the border and that it was the right thing in his opinion. US President Donald Trump said he would be willing to meet Iran's leader without preconditions to discuss how to improve ties after he pulled the United States out of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. Trump's remarks represented a marked softening in rhetoric from a week ago when he lashed out at Rouhani in a tweet saying threatening America would mean Iran having to face consequences that only few throughout history have ever suffered before. Shortly before that, in a July 22nd tweet, Rouhani had addressed Trump in a speech saying that hostile U.S. policies could lead to the mother of all wars. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said dialogue should be held with Russia and he would work with local communities to tackle issues raised by the construction of the Trans-Adriatic pipeline. Conte made the remarks at a news conference held at the White House after his meeting with the U.S. President Donald Trump. Conte held that although sanctions on Russia could not be lifted overnight, Italy would monitor the effects sanctions could have on businesses that maintain economic relationship with Italy. U.S. President Donald Trump again threatened to shut down the federal government if Congress does not pass the immigration reforms he seeks as a part of a spending package that must be passed by the end of September. Trump's threat comes during a news briefing with visiting Prime Minister Conte. U.S. President participated in the swearing-in ceremony of his new Department of Veterans Affairs Secretary, Robert Wilkie. Wilkie replaces David Shulkin, who was pushed out amid alleged ethics problems. Wilkie, 55 years old, has been acting secretary of the department since Trump fired Shulkin in March over concerns about unauthorized travel expenses. The Republican president's first choice to replace Shulkin, Trump's physician Ronnie Jackson, withdrew from consideration last month after allegations that he had been lax with prescription drugs and drank alcohol on the job. Paul Manafort will become the first of President Donald Trump's former aides to go on trial accused of bank and tax fraud by federal investigator probing Russian meddling in the 2016 U.S. presidential elections. Despite a focus on financial crimes, the trial could yield politically damaging headlines about a man who ran Trump's campaign for 3 months and attended a June 2016 meeting with Russian offering damaging information about Hillary Clinton. Building on President Donald Trump's Indo-Pacific strategy, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced $113 million in new regional investments focused on technology, energy and infrastructure. The announcement comes at a time when trade frictions with China have given U.S. trade diplomacy a sharper edge. China's Ministry of Commerce started the process of soliciting public opinions on a revised set of ministerial rules concerning foreign investors making strategic investments in Chinese listed companies. This indicates the government's intention to relax control on strategic foreign investment in the country. The revision also loosens control over the requirement for foreign investors, which mandated that a foreign company own actual overseas assets of no less than $50 million or manage actual overseas assets of no less than $300 million. China congratulates Pakistan on its smooth and successful completion of the recent general elections and hopes to join hands with the new Pakistani government in promoting the development of bilateral relations to a higher level. According to the results announced, by Election Commission on Saturday in the general elections on July 25th. Former Pakistani cricket star Imran Khan's party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, won a victory and is now in a strong position to form a new government. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi said China welcomes talks to a deal with trade frictions, underscoring that unilateral threats could only be counterproductive. Wang made the remarks in response at a joint press conference with British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt after they co-chaired the 9th China-UK Strategic Dialogue in Beijing. Wang said free trade is a consensus shared by the international community and an irresistible trend of history. The disappearance of Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 released by a safety investigation team said the real cause for the incident cannot be determined. The 1,100-page report will be submitted to the Malaysian House of Representatives today for consideration. The doomed MH370 carrying 239 on board went missing en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing on March 8, 2014. Zimbabwe voted in its first election since the former leader Robert Mugabe was ousted in a de facto coup. The opposition leader, however, has alleged voter suppression, raising fears of a disputed result. Nelson Chamisa is the main challenger to President Emmerson Mnangagwa, who served for decades under Mugabe. Mnangagwa is viewed as the front-runner, though the latest poll shows a tight race. The European Union chief observer said that Zimbabwe's elections in some cases has been totally disorganized, while at some places it has been very smooth. Elmar Brok said many voters, particularly young women, and left voting queues in frustration at long delays, and that this mission had not yet reached a conclusion on how to judge the vote. Malian incumbent President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita's spokesman said that the president was substantially in the lead according to provincial count, hinting his win in the first round, whilst the main opposition party candidate Somalia said the poll would go to a runoff. Spiraling jihadist violence has become a key issue in the campaign as attacks multiply and the death toll mounts across the north and central Mali. Malians awaited the results of the presidential elections, where figures published by the Ministry of Territory suggest simmering insecurity led to shutting down of 644 voting stations. Prime Minister Hun Sen's Cambodian People's Party said it had won all 125 parliamentary seats up for grabs in a general election, which the critics have said was neither free nor fair. According to National Election Commission, more than 82% of those registered to vote cast a ballot. Turnout was 90% in 2017 local election and 69.61% in the previous general elections in 2013. As Nicaragua's crisis drags on into its fourth month, many in the Central American country are making the choice to try and leave their country. As many as 17,400 applications for refugee status were presented to the Costa Rican government per month. Parks like Mercy Park in San Jose can be seen with large groups of Nicaraguans who are looking to complete the paperwork to gain legal status in Costa Rica. Spanish taxi drivers blocked major city streets in a protest to pressure the government to curb licenses to online ride-hailing services such as Uber. Union representatives were due to meet officials of Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's government later in the day to try to resolve the dispute. The taxi drivers have choked main roads and snarled airports, bus and train stations since Saturday. The Spanish government has said it aims to invest $35 million in an emergency plan to manage its new status as the main destination for seaborne migration from Africa. Prime Minister's office stated that the money will go towards covering the initial cost of managing arrivals on the beaches, from staff to hand out blankets and flood food to managing the process of identification and determining whether people qualify for asylum. Mexico says it has arrested 2 members of the Jalisco New Generation cartel in connection with the disappearance of 3 Italian nationals earlier this year. Video and photos of the 2 members, Jose Acusados and Jose Guadalupe, were presented by the authorities in Mexico City. The Naples natives went missing in January after being detained by police at a petrol station in the municipality of Tikal Italan in southern Jalisco. Tajikistan Interior Ministry said that a hit-and-run driver killed 4 foreign cyclists in Tajikistan in a suspected terrorist act. Tourists from the United States, Switzerland and the Netherlands were killed yesterday, while 3 more from Switzerland, the Netherlands and France were injured after the incident. Security forces pursuing suspects in the attack killed 4 people and detained 1. Among the 4 suspects killed was the owner of the car, which police believe struck the tourists as they were cycling through a rural area of 90 kilometers southeast of the capital, Dushanbe. A prolonged heat wave and drought have left huge swathes of parched fields and drooping crops in Germany, particularly in the country's northeast. The German Farmers Association, DBV, said that farmers need special aid of around $1.17 billion because of damage to harvest. Association President Joachim Ruckwied said that the damage caused runs into billions, raising the need for the aid to the farmers who lost 30% or more of their harvest. NBA superstar LeBron James hosted opening day ceremonies at a school he started for at-risk kids. The school in his hometown of Akron, Ohio, is a joint venture between the LeBron James Foundation and the local school system. The I Promise school will cater to 253rd and 4th graders who have fallen behind their peers due to difficult life conditions outside of the school. The students were delighted to enter the school, which features murals of such black leaders such as Martin Luther King Jr., Muhammad Ali and Jackie Robinson, and decorated with James' game-worn shoes on a giant wall. YouTube celebrity turned singer Queen Naija was swarmed with crowds and carried to her car in New York Times Square. Police held back fans as they surged into 7th Avenue, stopping traffic, trying to catch a glimpse of Queen Naija. The singer was in Times Square to promote her self-titled EP Queen Naija. A synagogue was vandalized with spray-painted Nazi symbol in a Carmel, Indiana. According to local media, a Nazi flag and a Nazi Iron Crosses graffiti was found painted on the shed of the Congregation Share Tefillah building. A local media reported the synagogue officials are working with the police department. Defense of Colombia's former president Alvaro Uribe, accused of manipulating witnesses in a process for alleged links with right-wing paramilitary squads, challenged 3 magistrates investigating him in the Supreme Court, blaming them of leaking audios to the media. Last week, Uribe accused President Juan Manuel Santos and Britain's MI6 spy agency of participating in a plot against him, a day after resigning his Senate seat to face a bribery and fraud investigation by the Supreme Court. Nearly 700 trekkers headed down Mount Rinjani on Indonesia's tourist island of Lombok this day after a powerful earthquake of magnitude 6.4 terrified climbers as boulders tumbled down the slopes of the volcano. Officials said the death toll from Sunday's earthquake, which was centered on the northern part of Lombok, stood at 16. More than 335 people were injured, many by collapsing buildings. A group of Bolivian chefs who go by the name Somos Calais or We Are From the Streets showed up in a local square in the Bolivian city of El Alto, bringing gourmet food to passerby. The group calls their project Sabor Clandestino or Secret Flavor, and they say they hope to democratize gourmet cuisine and highlight high-quality Bolivian ingredients. The We Are From the Streets group members were dressed in black aprons and face masks and served their dishes to the gathered crowd out of wooden boxes similar to those used in markets to sell fruits. A helicopter crashed in China's capital Beijing, injuring 4 people, according to the eyewitnesses. The helicopter hovered in what looked like an uncontrolled way before crashing. The body of the helicopter and its tail rotor separated upon impact. All 4 people on board were said to have climbed out of the wreckage. No casualties were reported on the ground, and the injured have all been sent to the hospital for treatment. The helicopter was for civil use and crashed while making a forced landing due to an unknown malfunction. More than 10,000 people fled their homes in California as wildfires quickly spread. The so-called Mendocino complex fire spread to more than 30,500 acres as firefighters struggled to contain a brush fire in Nevada overnight. Wildfires have scorched almost 4.3 million acres across the country so far this year. Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras met rescue workers and survivors of a wildfire that killed at least 91 people during his first visit to the town of Mati. Tsipras' visit comes a day after the disaster, and he said that he had been busy coordinating their response from Athens. His coalition partner went to Mati on Thursday and was shouted at by survivors. Several hundred Greeks holding candles gathered silently outside Parliament on Monday evening to commemorate those who died in a deadly wildfire. Standing around a heart shape arranged from the glowing lights, some mourners blamed the government handling of the disaster for the high death toll, with candles spelling the date of the fire, July 23rd, flickering at their feet. Others said they were still crippled by a sadness a week on from the disaster which killed at least 91 people. Terrorists attacked a vehicle belonging to the Indian paramilitary forces, injuring 3 soldiers in Jammu and Kashmir's Anantnag district. The soldiers were in a vehicle in the Sherbag area of the city when the terrorists fled the scene after attacking them. The injured have been taken to the hospital and the area has been cordoned off to conduct searches. While heavy rains caused nearly 60 deaths till Sunday in northern India, residents of low-lying settlement in Gorakhpur city of Uttar Pradesh claim they are facing another challenge of eroding lands. The Rapti River in the region, which is on an inundating mode, has been eroding the land on which people had made a settlement. Barely 20 to 30 huts are left in the region, with all the local efforts going pointless by authorities and the residents. Non-stop rains in Indian capital of New Delhi led to flood-like situation in the low-lying areas, forcing authorities to shift people to higher ground. Authorities have swung into action as water level in Yamuna River rose significantly due to non-stop rains flooding nearby areas. Authorities are providing makeshift tents with food and emergency medical services for the rescued people. Yamuna fulfills 60% of New Delhi's water needs. More than 4 million people were excluded from a draft list of citizens released yesterday by a census official for India's northeastern border state of Assam, sparking uncertainty about their future. Of more than 32 million people who submitted documents to prove their citizenship, the names of over 4 million people were missing. Officials said security had been tightened across the state as thousands of Bengali-speaking Muslims worry about them being sent to detention centers or deported. Online streaming platform Netflix is standing by master of none and Aziz Ansari despite a sexual misconduct allegation against him earlier this year. Cindy Holland, a programming executive for the streaming service, said there has been thought given to a third season for the comedy starring and co-created by Ansari. Hollywood actress Octavia Spencer is bringing the story of black hair care mogul Madam C.J. Walker to television. Netflix said that Spencer will produce and star in the limited series. Walker became one of America's first self-made female millionaires by creating and marketing hair products for African Americans at the turn of the 20th century. As filming is set to begin in London at the legendary Pinewood Studios on August 1st, the cast of J.J. Abrams' Star Wars movie called Episode 9 has been announced. Returning cast members include Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Lupita Nyong'o, Domhnall Gleeson, Kelly Marie Tran, Jonas Suotamo and Billy Lord. Twilight star Kristen Stewart, along with rising British actresses Naomi Scott and Ella Blalinska, will play the iconic Charlie's Angel that is getting a reboot. Elizabeth Banks will direct the film and also play the role of Bosley, the manager of the never-seen owner of the detective agency, Charles Townsend.
Kristen, can you turn to the right? Here we go.